Checker the voice, checker the voice over to the screen, popping screens, popping shares, popping boring, very, very, very boring market. I just typed in, it's like a Monday morning, waiting for, excuse me, I keep forgetting to clear my throat for some reason. I've been, um, not in a hurry, to get to the live rooms, but I'm sleeping in more because there's just nothing to look at. I get up at 3 and 4 in the morning when it comes to crypto. There's just not a lot to look at. And this week, the rest of the market is flat as a pancake for the most part. A nice little silver candle yesterday, but I'd be hard pressed besides some random pumps again. So, and I haven't made it all the way up the board this morning. But with what I had saw at the bottom, I don't really expect anything but blood, and that's what we got. Not big blood, just 2 to 4%. 2 to 4% is volatility. Anything that's over that is usually pumped and is just giving back more, which they're doing. As you see, as I roll all the way up the board, and you have basically volatility to the downside, which means that most likely BTC is bleeding, and I think it's down 2%, which is volatility. When it comes to which just means that that's what they do every day. As you know, sometimes they're way flatter than 2%, but 2% on Ethereum is pretty flat. Um, and the rest of the market, even though they'll register up in that 5% range sometimes on the alts and a little higher, depending on what kind of coin it is, like an ENA can get a little bit more volatile than that, but it's sitting at 2%. So just rolling the board and looking at the percentages, it's flat as it can be. Who's here this morning? Good morning, Purple. So, yeah, that's what I was just talking about. It's like a Monday morning flat. What are we waiting for? Not a lot of report on here. As I got up this morning and woke up and was working on some things and look, I got up a few times last night. Well, not last night, but after I kind of shut everything down, I come over and peek at the charts to see what kind of work I've got to do on a live room. What's going on? What are we going to be talking about? And no, I mean literally nothing. Copper grabbed me last night, so we may take a peek at copper this morning. It's up 0.5%, and that big sell-off. Looking for anything that's interesting to show people, honestly. As far as the crypto and the trade calls and stuff like that, this shit is stalled out again. There's no carry through on the Jackson Hole and the Powell. And it's just that's lessons which you have to get used to. Some people went out and ran out and got a bunch of leverage, and that was the green light and all in. It's a good. They signaled it. They haven't done it yet. So the markets, are they going to wait for them to do it? Most times they'll price it in. Do they price it in one day? Markets are moving like that. Was all those candles that came in, that's how much you're going to get for a rate cut. Well, it depends on how much they cut and if they actually do it. Is there any data between now and then that could stop them? I don't think any data is going to stop them. They're going to start doing what they're going to do. And once now they've said it, and we could talk a little bit about the dollar and price action and as the Fed's reverse course. The reverse course doesn't actually take place the day that they start to cut rates in the markets, even though that's the actual day that quantitative tightening would be probably penciled in as the ending of it all, the technical part of it. But all that stuff starts to unwind and reverse and do its thing in the markets as all of what's going on out there takes place. What's going on with Trump is going to be your question every week, every day that you sit down and you look at your investments, your money, what you're considering to do until he's not there no more. And there's another narrative. So that's what I'll say about what's going on. And I don't know exactly what they're on. I was keeping up with it on like a daily basis. That shit was wearing me out. That's that Twitter stuff. Um, and the drama and the next drama and the next drama and the next drama and the next drama to try to keep up with the one that pops it all. It is kind of it's what it seems like a lot of people do out there, just looking for the smoking gun and being there and trying to report the smoking gun of what sets off what a lot of people are waiting for, which is a black swan and a crash, especially when you venture into metal communities. They're I forget the word, prepping. That's the word. So, they're not only stacking, they're prepping too, and preparing for, you know, black days, power outages, switchover, meltdown, the dollar. I think is the main thing that I think would have to happen for all of their preparations and their thoughts and their plans and for the meltdown. The reset all the way down to the ground, the Civil War, I think would have to happen possibly in America. Hey, I'm not gonna go talking about all that stuff because there's so many different avenues you could go down with what would actually have to happen. I think for me, number one is the dollar would have to absolutely collapse. The financial system, as we know, would have to collapse because if the dollar collapses, is there Wall Street? Is there anything? Is there anything but do I have food today? How am I gonna get food tomorrow? And all that stuff quickly, I would think. The whole damn everything comes crashing down for most folks. So not going to go too much further than that. You see, I'm on Litecoin here. So as I rolled up the board and I was looking at position, all the other coins and stuff and the percentages, all I get is flat, 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 flat on a Friday, right? 9:06 a.m., 8:29, 2025. I almost could say this is what my eyes has been seeing all week for the most part. A little bit more blood, it seemed like, came after we had the green candles and we went into the weekend. Was it because everybody loaded up on long leverage? You could say that. I think maybe that would fit. Just lay out some theories of what just happened. I think that could float up to the top pretty prevalently because of the way this market is and how folks are. As I roll down, I mentioned AVAX. Lots of news coming out on AVAX. So DeFi again. You're getting it low. If you come down here and get you some, you got to realize that too big of a stall out in crypto now means that this thing goes down there. And that's the risk of these now is they're in these places where it could go either way. There's still not a lot of evidence that there's going to necessarily go that way, except what purple. About the only evidence that I can send through and why I do send the stuff through, not for all of you guys to go out and try to trade all that stuff, is these random ones that keep sticking these candles up because that hasn't been happening. Think about, back as you watch me and the periods we go through and learn to be able to watch me and be able to know that what kind of market conditions you're in and I'm trying to write it up better, like price action coins like a 1 inch and a KNC. You're trained enough by me and you have availability to me. If you decide you want to trade any of that stuff I show you, or you find good areas, you can do it without me making a call on it. But there's no way I can put calls on all of this stuff and keep up with it in my personal way that I do this and show it to you guys. So that's what I'll say about the price action and the other coins that you've seen go up because I can't keep up with all of them, and there's no way I can and get ahead of all of them before they send up big candles, and then trying to cover them after they do that. It's about near damn insanity and brain numbing. Hey Pete. So AVAX, lots of news coming through. That doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere, but it has a bunch of ticks here for why we may see a move coming up on this one. The news, the fact that it's DeFi, and the last dip right there around 20s where my call was. So, where will my call be now? As close to 20s you can get it. Dip, you want to buy the blood, and you still have risk down here because there's a square up right there. And just because they're above all these moving averages doesn't doesn't mean they won't go back. Looking more bullish though. So if you have a position in it, ride it. It could come in here and rip. That's the whole point. If it dips and you're interested, you really want it down here, and you should be happy. If it goes to 18 or 19, that's buy the dip, buy it when they're freaking out. It's going to zero. But you still got to protect yourself because it's one of those that hasn't went all the way to the bottom. Man, they don't have to, especially on a bull. I mean, they stalled out, held their spots, and now if they're going to go, they're going to go, and they're in rip zones, as you can see. How far those rip zones go, and do we break into these higher places up in here? You would think a bull would. This bull, I question about will we see like AVAX go up here and go into price discovery? I don't. I think that the people who come along and try to tell you that right now, are operating in another dimension that I haven't found yet. Is what I'll say about that. Technically, what I just did, I pulled from the top to the bottom of the whole damn move. I'm going to immediately look up to make sure I'm on a good exchange, and I have a pretty good history of the chart, which would be Binance. And most times, if I'm on Binance, the answer is yes. Obviously, you can see I have a BTC chart as well. I'm not going to click on that right now. And then my take from looking at the chart and just looking through it, it's a pretty good sideways move. They were making higher highs. All that changed right through here on the move off the bottom. That changed right here, and they started making lower lows. And if you get into this, your first target is going to be right around 40, 42. The rest of it is, you're going to watch it. It'll look like a breakout, but they're going back into technically possibly forming a downtrend through here. And you have to think about all this stuff and not all this stuff anymore. This is way back here, elevated bull 2021. So, there's a lot to think about when you look at the chart. You would think it's going to do something like that. I don't know how much my money would trust above about even 100, the way this market is and the way it gives back. And unless we got more evidence of a lot more healthier moves and this type of price action, with some other stuff, like you would think that Aave, if we were going to start to see some sort of special moves, that Aave would give us some sort of indication that if we have some AVAX, how much more we can trust up here. So when you guys start looking at those higher targets and asking me questions about, I think Pete's in here. When we start talking about $1, with LCX, we need some of the early stuff, and there's not a lot of it, to go to hell off and kind of show us what kind of bull is this? What kind of bull are we getting here now? Every one of these coins that I show you, even though this is DeFi, this is lending DeFi. BNB's had a nice run. BNB's all wrapped around this coin. So, and this one has a huge. This may not look like much to y'all, but this is a huge move that they did in the past. And these charts, something happened. I never really figured out the best way to explain it. So they merged charts or something. I lost charts as I was following Aave, and just ridiculous percentages here. In case you've never really quantified, and it's not. It's only showing 3,000 on this one, so I'm on Coinbase. So history, and maybe I'll do that. It probably get pretty complicated, and I'm not too sure because I know they took stuff away from me, with the Aave and from the original moves of the past, were huge. which is huge, volatile as all get out. You may say no different than any other crypto, but it was different. I was right there with it. Oh, we got somebody else in here. Who we got in here? Well, I'm in here, and Pete's in here, and Purple's in here, and good morning, Bill. So better get off my screen. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, like the first coin of what's going on here to help me with my trust levels on where my money potentially starts to go in the other coins. Is one of these do something. So, what other examples do we have out there of coins that have been bullish so far? Well, we have Ethereum and we have Bitcoin. So those are the top dogs, right? Am I right or wrong? So I'm looking at Aave, and you're like, but those, if somebody say, well, those aren't alts, or they'll say BTC is not an alt. I'll say, well, what about Ethereum? I told y'all all this hinged on Ethereum for a long time, did I not? So go back to the question, and what are we waiting on? What are we waiting on? What are we waiting on? And see how many times in the past, if you go all the way back to President Trump getting elected, that you won't find answers to, hey, that's what we were waiting on, but then nothing ever happened. And then that's what we were waiting on, but nothing happened. And then that was what we were waiting on, that nothing happened. The inflation's the pivot of the feds, Trump winning the election, the Genius Act, the stable coins, the pro administration of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Reserve, and just keep on going. The fact that you have this man that for some reason has endless money to buy Bitcoin at the top anytime. Well, it actually goes down after he does it, but it seems like sometimes obviously everybody knows at this point that Michael Saylor is going to show up and buy more Bitcoin at the top. And anybody's paying attention knows that, and anybody that holds Bitcoin or invests in Bitcoin or watches any kind of Bitcoin news knows that there's this man that's going to buy Bitcoin every time. So maybe I feel a lot more comfortable with my investment because I have Michael Saylor on my side, and that sucker just shows up and buys billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every time it goes up or down. And that would start to get confusing to somebody, I would think, if they watched it close enough. Why the hell does that thing keep going down? Somebody like me would explain it to them real easy. I'd be like, this is just the way the markets work. If someone comes in and buys a bunch of stuff, the price has to be pushed down in order to get all those orders filled, which is technically true. But the person that asked me the question most likely really doesn't have any clue what I told them, unless I really dissect and try to do that. And most people don't care. They just ask the question to engage in so many ways. So belief systems here, Aave, early call, as I've repeated over and over. And for people to get their money in an early call, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you really are ready to jump on and try to catch some of these alts. So this and what it means to crypto and the alt season, how important is it? What Aave does. It's the very first one that I kind of caught potentially setting itself up to do something. It's did it, but it continues to stall out. But in all essence, where's it at? It's not where Ethereum is. So we'll talk about comparisons here. I'm just going to try to keep this on comparisons this morning. I'm fixing to roll to Ethereum, and what you're looking out there, and where you're going to get your trust levels if you get all of a sudden your LCX position, you wake up and it's at 50 cents, and they've trained you to sell because good God, it's going to probably go back to 30 cents. Where's it going, Pete? At this point, if it didn't change and it went to 50 all of a sudden, it'd give back 80%, and you would know it almost because every single one that I click on, all the price action coins, OGN is another one that's had a nice little run, giving it back. Dia, Curve, anybody that took any of those trades and sold when they pumped, you didn't do nothing wrong. Are they training you to do that? So now the next time they're just going to keep going and create the FOMO, and then create the unbalance in you, about, are you doing the right thing? Have you got to the point where no matter what you do, you understand in so many ways, it doesn't matter once you've done it, you've done it. Whether it be the right thing or the wrong thing, you did it. And there's nothing you can do about it. So the mental game here, the mental game of FOMO, hodl. Some of the videos that I could potentially make when the market's like this, but I prefer everything to be green when I make videos. Just one of those things. It's easier. It's easier. People don't like when everything's bleeding, although in the past they did. Somebody else's ear. Gary showed up. Hey, Gary. Back to this and back to our comparison and our trust levels and if your coin starts going off, what makes you so confident it's going to make a big move and do something? So the other coin that you can compare all this to would be XRP. So you could say, well, Aave is going to definitely break the top because XRP broke the top. And I'll be like, well, that's a debate point, and I'd use it too because you got to compare the shit to something. Well, BTC. So look what BTC did. I would be like, well, you got to kind of back off that a little bit because you're talking about BTC and BlackRock now and regulation pass and Sailor, and you've got a lot of stuff in the ETFs and stuff. You got to throw all that stuff in the BTC. So just because BTC broke and is at all time highs doesn't mean your alt's going to do that too. But BTC did it. XRP did it. What did Ethereum do? So that's our other example. Now, I'll quickly run out of examples on them, but there's another example, BNB. And I've been over here hunting shorts for damn near I don't know how long. I don't really like anything that I've never really enjoyed trying to cover this coin. Even from the early days, I never really got. It was reverse BTC, I was okay with it for a while, and I can't remember where I just kind of lost it with this coin. Probably somewhere in here where it was very bearish, and then it does this, and it leaves that behind. That's what I'll tell you with BNB. The BNB lost me here as far as covering it because of the risk levels. And in so many ways, when BTC didn't clear up 12 and starts to move, the further BTC moves away from 12, and it's the case with BNB now. Now, any time you could have come in here and traded this stuff. But as far as the way I kind of look at coins and getting people in coins and stuff, they screwed all that up here through here. And the folks who would have come in and bought BNB at 350 right now, or 400 or FOMO'd into BNB because it's going to be whatever. I don't know what they're going to say it's going to be. Five, and they bought in at 500. They haven't doubled yet. And when it comes to crypto, so just kind of think through when you look at BNB and think about what's going on over here. All anybody that came in this thing in the early days and held it, good Lord, but that's kind of the case with anything. And how many people are going to be able to do that when something shoots up 700? So how many of those people are actually still around? Walk you through a little bit of sentiment and then really think when you come to a chart and you maybe start feeling like, God, man, I'm stupid. No, you're not. Your brain is trying to make you feel stupid because it looks like, God, I could have just put all my money in me and I wouldn't have to be worrying about money no more. It's not that easy. Now, you could have possibly did it right there. And, if you'd have known what to do and they gave you two chances to get out, didn't they? And that's 2021. So, you could have really nailed that on COVID if BNB was one of the coins that you really wanted. It wasn't mine. I'd have to go back and listen to them, all my stuff. But I can probably remember most of those coins. I bought basically 12 coins on COVID, and this wasn't one of them. But you can see what kind. I mean, it basically did move to where we're at for the most part right now. Back in 2021, just an absolutely huge move. Okay, so now think about that. Think about where we're at right now. And we made a move from 200 now to about 800. So anybody that took advantage of that 200 there is up about 300 or 400%. And you can kind of see what I'm showing here. Should I take that off if we go into a bull? Don't know where I pulled that leg. Looks like I used a shallow leg on this, and so I'm going to take this off for a sec. I can tell you, I don't like that. There's just no way I could get anybody involved in this. Maybe some trading up in here, but the fact that it doesn't correct like a normal crypto is very alarming to me to begin with because of my experience with crypto. Um, it's very alarming, and even with other markets, and you're going to find that if I've steered you wrong in anything, and it's that way because of where the price is at, it's because I have a rule. I'm not interested. There's too much risk there. I've seen that fixed too many times, and I passed. And so you get this situation where, good God, I ain't listening to him no more. But time will tell us on it. And sometimes those things can be left behind. And that's where I'll take you to Brexit. But then, I'll explain to you that Brexit is regulated. It's central bankers. It's a fiat, and things can get left behind. And I've always told folks that bought at 450 BNB, sold like at 20. See a lot you can, yeah, don't beat yourself up. I mean, definitely don't beat yourself up. I can't remember my coverage on BNB here. And it may not even be this part of B&B that really got me. I just remember at some point, I just threw my hands up with this one. I got tired. Yeah, and I don't like the community so much, and the B&B traders and stuff. I really didn't, be honest with what I experienced out there coming up with this coin. I didn't really want to cover it for folks too much because of what it began to draw to me. B&B, I'm gonna keep going before I get caught up in this. I was kind of trying to think through it because that chart just looks crazy where it took off, and I can't remember that off the top of my head in 2021 where B&B just ripped it like that, but I obviously did. But I mean, the big question here is a bull going to take this higher? I have no trust in anything up here. That's the easy one for me. As far as opportunities and stuff like that. And then what would I tell somebody? If there's a chance it's going to go higher, and then I just look at that and I'm like, I don't talk about this. No, I can't help you. You're gonna have to go talk to somebody else who believes in this. Exchange coin. So, think about LCX coin. There's all of these exchange coins. I was talking to somebody about Q coin and Kraken, and we were discussing LCX and their past success with different exchange coins. So you could have done well with this one. I had a little bit of a Tron vibe on this one. So again, in the realm of what can we compare your LCX or your Fox or your any position that you have in an alt right now with what they have in store for it. And you could use BNB, um, just the fact that it's broken its all-time high. So is what I would say here. An exchange token, Big Daddy, still around, still pushing highs, and Tron's doing the same thing. So an XRP, old schools. Lots of old schools haven't done anything though. So and I'm gonna roll down, and DXY is still flat down there. We may come back to it for a little while. When I was trying to spin up a video, the next video on the dollar, and we'll go to Ethereum, which took forever, forever to get going, obviously, and just an anomaly of a sell-off, but it happened to everything really. Um, for the Trump tariff stuff. So if you let me click to another chart right here. Not that one. Uh, uh, uh. The dip here and I talked about this the last time I covered Ethereum. Very much an anomaly when you're trying to look at the normal crypto cycle and a bull, because we go up, we run it, we come, we dip, COVID, and 2021 comes in and we run it. And then we dip, we go sideways for a while, and then it all warms up, BTC, all that stuff, everything's going on. And, this was pretty good dip here. Back to this red moving average, but okay. So we're volatile. We're used to that. Let me clear the chart. So we come in here and that rip down. So we get going and we rip down. We're used to that. Okay, we've seen that before. And when we come in here and then we do that, well, that ain't no freaking bull, right? My point when I go through this and I talk about that, and that happened everywhere. So bull, what? Stalled out. Trump did a fake bull. Basically, is what happened. He brought in the tariffs, which stalled out the speculative money. It cut the risk on, and the speculative money plays, and the people who are printing over here in crypto. Was it done on purpose, on accident? Did they have to kind of like get in a line? Excuse me. That I'm over here doing my crypto, and we're fixing to do altseason, and everybody's fixing to make all this money around this ecosystem, and Bitcoin's done its thing, and altseason's coming, and everything's lined up right. And we even got the extra sauce. Trump's going to be the president, and that sucker's going to pump crypto, because it's all coming through all the networks, and the data's coming through, and Trump crypto, he's going to jump on it. He's going to have to do meme coins. He's going to shield this. He's going to mention that. Every time they bring up Trump, they're going to say crypto, and then there's going to be like 4 coins and ads and algo and all that stuff for 4 years. Everybody's got the green light on it. And it all looked okay for a while. And then one weekend he starts with the tariffs and he cranks it up and he don't stop. Is it over? It seems to be. That's what I'll say about the tariffs. Although you can have hiccups and that shit. And then, the longer the market doesn't react to it for a while, the more likely that something like that can show up and have some volatility in the market if it comes back to life. And all of a sudden it's something's happening. For some reason they're making tariffs serious again. Some of the data that comes back on any of the effects and stuff, inflation, obviously the Feds. So and I just mentioned the Fed. So the Fed seemed to have done a reverse. Powell seems to have done a reverse and went from no, there's no need to cut rates, to now we're going to cut rates. And they went from the economy was just grinding along, everything looks good, to uh-oh. In one speech, that's what seems to have happened. That's what's, for the most part, I catch being reported. That was Friday. We're back to Friday, and what's the market done since that speech? Not anything besides green candles that day. So as we go into the weekend, do we feel like we're going to have, and I've been asking this question for a while, and I'll continue to until we have this alt season. Do we feel like we're going to have an alt season weekend, or can you just kind of chill and for the most part, whatever work that you do with your crypto, unless you want to do some studying or whatever, you're not going to probably miss a damn thing, are you? Don't let it stress you out. Don't let it push you. Use your time for some stuff that you may have been wanting to learn, clean up, whatever. It's one of those things. Crypto, I would say for most of y'all, is almost like college in a way. You're only going to get out of it how much you put in, and you only have so much time, and you only have so much energy, and you have to have an incentive. If the shit ain't gonna pump and you can't make money, that's the greatest incentive of all this. And they haven't paid out for how long, Pete? For the most part, who do we lose? We lost somebody. Who's there? Gary Pete must let it go. Gary's still here. So, um, there's your incentive and the payout. It comes. I mean, obviously, if you'd have got into, you know, Ethereum here when I was showing it, and my take on it is if Ethereum's going to do this, the alts are going to do this as well. So far, this is a pretty strong move. The percentages are, 250. That should spell out 1,000% moving and all. What do you think? And there's a lot of alts attached to Ethereum. Back in 2017, when Ethereum and Light and BTC did this, how many alts ran? How many alts ran in that alt season? And how'd they run them? A lot of that was there was a lot more Satoshi trading on that BTC side too, where the BTC was actually going into a ETC BTC or a Doge. I don't think Doge was back in that day. But the BTC pairs, and then back to BTC. What's going on now? A lot of USD trading. Is it the same or is it not? It's a lot of USD to USD to USD to USD to USD to USD, and no, you don't have to go buy Bitcoin to do it. So a different mechanism, a different way that folks attack the markets, all different. Back to the anomaly right here in the charts and Trump and the lineup of all this, and the bull. So, and you're thinking, or my thinking here, and how I explain it to you, about let me clear it again, because here's the takeoff right here. There's where they trick everybody right here. And and they did it throughout the charts. And there's the rug pull. And now we're here. How does all that coincide to Trump's son telling people to buy the dip? And that would be interesting. This is probably as bad as Kramer, ain't it? Most likely. Do you think that's on purpose? That stuff is put out there and it's so bad, and anybody that technically uses it probably lost their shirt, especially if they don't know what they're dealing with. Because even if it was just $1,000, I'm gonna just go throw $1,000 in there and see what happens. Good God, what the hell's wrong with his son? You thought people can't handle that, you guys. Most new fresh money was out 20% down. That right there probably shook any new stuff. Any new stuff, really. 20%. They're not used to know some folks 2, 3, 4%. It's been depending on what kind of person it was and how schooled they are. But the rest of that, all that new money's gone. So now what shows up? What shows up and pushes this? BlackRock. All those companies show up and start bomb, and maybe not necessarily BlackRock, but I think BlackRock is said to have switched a bunch of Ethereum or a bunch of BTC for Ethereum as well. But all those companies started showing up and doing a sailor on it, Ethereum all of a sudden. I hadn't really seen all that bubbling in the back. I could have missed something too, because I tend to gloss over a lot of the tech stuff. And anybody that goes into that tech stuff should be able, say, hey, Scott, have you seen this? I've just been picking any of the tech you guys that are techie that really read it. And most times I will pick it up, and I started picking it up. I started seeing I can't bring the name up off the top of my head, but you've seen me pass the articles through on Ethereum and all the different things. And it's just the Sailor company. It's like the Sailor company, and what he did with Bitcoin is technically being shown that being done with Ethereum, but it's a group of companies. So there's that narrative story going on there that for me kind of came out of the blue, because what was going on before all this, when on these dips on Ethereum. Ethereum is falling apart. They replaced the leaders. It was just, that Ethereum's never going to make it back, because now there's Solana and there's going to be new and there's Sui, and all that. So they flooded it to death in so many ways, did they not? So I would say, what you just experienced with Ethereum is a better example the funding nature of what they do. And most of you guys are used to that, but you have to be paying attention, don't you? And see it all come through and kind of get that flow of the news and Ethereum. And all you got to do is go over there to the Telegram in so many ways and hashtag Ethereum, and then it'll list it all down the side for you. And you can go back in the past and anything. Well, a lot of the news and stuff would probably not have the hashtags, but it should be all over there if you just search hashtag Ethereum. If you kind of want to just kind of go back through and catch up with what's going on here, basically the salarization of Ethereum, JP Morgan, BlackRock, and altseason, which I consistently told y'all if we were going to have altseason, we needed that. Well, we got it. Well, now what happened? Well, I still ain't making a whole bunch of money, Scott. And I completely agree with you. There's been some good, decent moves here. Things aren't getting slammed and making new lows and all that. But where's the pump? It's in some random ass shit that there's no way I can get y'all in unless I just get lucky. Mirror, neon, new coins, and I was on my way over to add some new coins, but really got to have energy and you got to have some of this other stuff going off before there's any reason for me to show you any new coins, because even if I find a couple, if they pump, it's going to be so random that you're most likely, and me or you most likely are not going to have any money in it. And so what does that make the random crypto alt pumps? Worthless. If you work your butt off, there's a group of people, and I do, and I study this stuff and try to keep up with it, and I can't even get it in front of anybody, or I can't take advantage of it. Who the hell else could? A hodler? A hodler's in any of these coins is way upside down, and 100 to 200% candle pump does them what? No good whatsoever. So back to the point of what I'm on Ethereum for. And where's your alt going? And can it break an all-time high? And how these comparisons of all this, and some trust if you start to take off that we're going to have an alt season, and it is a bull, and that just takes it into a whole bunch of other questions. What kind of percentages are we going to get off of alt runs this time, and what kind of a bull are we going to have? Are we, and I'm still after running fibs and working on my charts, and I'm just going to put a line up here. I'm still in the camp of 8,000, you guys. It is kind of where I'm like, it gets iffy after that. Now think about my 109 on Bitcoin. And, once I got to 109 and I started looking at it, hey, you guys, this makes sense that they're going to continue to push this thing and go up into these 120 areas. And they've done it. Does it make sense that BTC may continue to push and push up into the 125 and 150 area? It does to me, but it's such a no man's land that I'm going to watch it, cover it. Now it seems less likely, but they still got to do some more damage to BTC. That's what I say about BTC. But with this one, the heavy shills at 10, a lot of people don't trust. A lot of people are shorting right here. I've noticed that the short traders, of course, it's good. So just because there's, they think that it's over, and it's all bullshit. Those folks tend to have never really experienced anything like this. So, they've never been in, they can see it on a chart, but seeing it on a chart and experiencing and understanding is a whole different story. So, there's a bunch of different camps out there. I'm going to stick to the camp here right now, without a lot of evidence, because what can I compare Ethereum to right now? Bitcoin, BNB, XRP. So the raw water, what have those things done? Basically went back up to the tops and broke them, and that's where we sit here with Ethereum. It being the number two is still, as far as I'm concerned, no matter how hard they putted this thing, is that it's going to come in and do a pretty strong move. All the other markets of the world, the S&P, the tech stocks, everything's made all-time highs. So you would think that this one is going to do that as well, unless there is something that gets thrown at it that the markets decide to absolutely collapse it with. And that's going to be the case with crypto all the time, as far as I'm concerned. Quantum comes into my mind, and the FUD that most likely will eventually be used with that term and that technology and all of that type of stuff and AI that comes through. What all are they going to do in the next FUD cycles when this stuff starts going down, and for some reason it won't go up? And obviously, you understand that by watching these alts for basically 4 years. Why won't it go up? There's no pump mechanism in any of this. It's like they need to print tether, and they have recently. So there has been printing of stable coins. It hasn't showed up, but I hadn't seen it in a while. But there has been that. Again, as I roll that board, what am I seeing on this board? Just volatility. Ethereum having a hold on a second, you guys. I had to just move myself closer to the screen, and I was like, "Hold on, I got my glasses on. I shouldn't have to do that. I need to clean my glasses." Um, so what was I talking about here? I don't know that train of thought that I was on, but what I'll do is I'll jump over here to Ethereum BTC, where we clearly are at a point for a red phone call. The thought project behind this is if you're looking for new entries, you're probably going to be better off waiting for some sort of blood to come. The next thing is if you're in coins, that doesn't mean they can't pump before that red phone call comes. They could sit here for a little while, kind of just sit here, and Ethereum and BTC go to sleep. That's what needs to happen anyway, to have some sort of alt season and consistency with some pumps that flow through the board where I've got like 5 or 10 coins in one day to report on. And it's not just a candle that shoots up, pumps as hard as it can, and then 24 hours later, 50 to 60% of that candle is gone and it's wicked. That is lingering alt pump trap money. Not so much for me as to be able to say a bull. It's definitely not low hanging fruit for a lot of people to take advantage of, and be able to actually cash out money. So, to be pretty visual there for you guys. I could go probably the higher time frame is going to have a moving average. It will, the green one. So you can go through your moving averages and just look at it. It should be pretty easy for you to see what I'm telling you is we're due for a red phone call on Ethereum. We're due for Ethereum to correct. Um, by at this point, last time we had corrected pretty hardcore twice. As you see, we've just kind of like come in, did a little bit of a sideways move, a little dip and a little dip. We're due for about a 20% haircut. Um, where's that going to come from? You can see about 20. Where's that going to come from? And, it'll depend on how they do it with the candles and stuff. And it's going to come out of Ethereum, but it's very rare that Ethereum is going to go down 20% and BTC ain't going to go down as well. So it looks like there's some volatility coming in on a Friday too, as they're sending Ethereum now. So this could be the start of that. It was kind of my call here is that they were just going to keep pushing and not give you too much of a chance to get a position going here. And then once they got up in here, look for a bigger correction. They're not too close. They're not too far from being 20%, but you're looking at about back over here, like about 39 or so. And get a better chart for it. Look at that. Do it again. From the top there. Looks like it's still, I may want to even go a little further. That's about 11%. So you go down about 20. I go take it about 25. Get pretty close to right there. It'll be about 4,000. It looks like really support. So, the question you got to ask yourself if you're interested in Ethereum is if you do see, I think, if you do see it go to about 39 or 4, are you interested in buying it? Or do you want to trade it? I don't think you really want to invest in it. There's just no way I would tell you to invest in it right there. You're looking at 100%. Some people may do that, but if you get it right there, are what are the chances it's going lower? I'd say your chances are still that it's going to go lower. 382. I still say your chances are going to go lower. I still haven't seen one that's really not come back to the 618. Have you? And now it's Ethereum. So is it going to come back that far? That's probably about 40%. It is. That's about a 40% haircut. Could I count on that for my entry right now? I'd say you're hard pressed, but we'll see. 20 to 30% to get back to that blue. And remember, this is Ethereum and BTC, so it depends on how they move it when they do it. So 20 to 30%. Then the fact that they haven't done one yet. So it could be a little bit more volatile to just really shake everybody, right? So they could really kind of push this if they want to. So that gives me what? 30%. Now let's get back without having to click on all those. What in the world? That's the futures. Starting to feel like I drink coffee. So now let's go back over here, clear the chart again, and take the whole leg of money and think about the fibs, because a normal crypto retracement at this point will normally give us a 618, and that puts it at 2,800. How many of you guys in the room this morning think you're going to get a chance at Ethereum at 2,800 again? I mean, this cycle. That's about 30%. Still makes sense in so many ways. If that happens, most likely, unless it's some kind of Ethereum specific sell off, I've seen that before. All of a sudden, Ethereum hits a spot, and all of a sudden, you got about 30% sell off. BTC is going to be taking a 20% haircut as well. So let's go over and look at BTC. And that would put in the top to me. So, and that's what I was kind of getting at is if we're going to get a red phone call, from and get Ethereum corrected that much, which is not, it doesn't have to happen. If we go bull, maybe there's just not going to come that type of retracement on that leg of money. But you can see even with BTC, as BTC is going up, it's bringing itself back down to the 618. Gets going right here, and it stops doing it in a way at the top right here. If BTC was to sit here, and then all of a sudden they come in and correct everything, you could see BTC pressing on support on it. And to me, the top's in. That is a very clear sign the top is in. And when the buy the dip shows up on that move, and I'm not saying they're going to get all of a sudden get that deep, and that support's right there. So I'm definitely looking at that's a little bit too deep. Probably have to go to the next time frame. And the green right there, probably too deep too. So I move to breach 100. I move to the blue moving average right here. Is that going to be enough? That's not going to be that kind of correction that Ethereum shows possibly happening with just 10%, unless Ethereum's going to lose twice that with the move here. And I was looking at even more like a 30% maybe dip. So that moving average maybe not what we're looking at this thing going to. No moving average is there to really look at. That one's too close to me. And I think it's going to put me back in that red one again. I'll move up 80. Well, we're going to see a rip to 80 show up. It's not going to need to. Okay. For one is, you see, for when I'm looking at BTC right now and speaking to you guys about BTC, where is it sitting at? It's sitting at a bounce point, and it should bounce. And most likely the bounce is going to take it up to wherever they need to liquidate the people who are short right now. And I saw something on this morning. BTC traders, people are interested in stuff. There's heat maps. They have heat maps and stuff out there, and they list where all the liquidations and is some of the accounts and stuff, and I'll throw it through sometimes. Hey, they're going to liquidate everybody at a certain amount. I think the last time it was at right around 125, and I don't think they actually got to 125, but most likely got all those people, and they need to go there. So there's a spot up right now. I'd probably say it's at 120, 123, 124, something, 122. So that would be the most likely case for VTC right now, is to catch a bid and push back up into that area right there. So if from that area they decided, if we didn't have a big Ethereum correction, and Ethereum isn't really moving, it hasn't done much from where it's at right now, a 20% clip to get us down and breach of the 100, and maybe even something that dramatic where we catch a move on BTC from like 120 to about 80. That would be a decent short. I'm kind of all over the place this morning, and I feel it with my with what I'm talking to you guys about. Remember what I was getting on about though, and I'm gonna clear the chart again on this one. What I'm getting on about is what I'm getting on about. What I'm getting on about is our comparisons and our trust levels, and if we get an alt season, and how you're thinking and where your targets are. And when you're going up into those other levels with those coins and you're thinking about the bigger targets, well, the only trust you have is the coins that have done the moves. And BTC is one of them, but it's the main one too. So you can see there's some volatility on a New York session, no green. And that's a little bit more than volatility, a little bit more than 2% now means that BTC is possibly going to correct harder here. And when I see that, obviously what I do is I just roll through and say, well, is what's out there taking damage and what's going on, and what all is am I picking up in these charts? Copper. I showed you guys this one when it made this move down. These are the type of kind of how I hesitate. You would almost have to attack this on, you would on a leverage side. So, more trading opportunity, but also a way to track the copper price, which could be being set up to go much higher. You may see me do more on this. I was taking a peek at it last night, and I had showed some folks once it crapped on itself like that. Great little spot for copper. Physical, that's a little different here with copper and that whole industry and all that, but the paper side of it as well for folks who participate in these markets and would be interested in taking advantage. And I honestly feel like that whole thing was set up to go up a lot higher with this one. So a little bit of copper there for you too. I got everybody in here. I feel a little boring this morning. I feel like the subject matter that I've given you is good, but the market, and it's because it's been like this all week. I can't. What am I supposed to do with it? I eventually just kind of throw my hands up in there and kind of turn everything up and I try to go quiet, because the more I keep it up, the more frustrated I get with it and the more cynical and all that. And it's not necessarily what you guys over there want to hear, or when you want to hear in these videos is either. You want green, you want storm, you want some hopium, you want some energy, and they won't give it to us. No matter. I just, kind of talked about the setup with Trump and the green light, and then the tariffs came, and it just seems like, they just stalled everything out, and have played with everybody, and we're almost back to that point again a year later. Those people and that money and all that stuff, they done like gave up, and then they've extended this out for another year. And the people that were holding on that got some hopium and stuff, hell, they done wore them out again because it's like a year later, fresh money in, it's time to go, and now it's a year later, and still on a Friday and all damn week long after supposedly what we got everything we wanted, they're gonna cut rates. And you know, Link's down 7%. Link's back down in about that 23 area. So you know, everything's bleeding. But you look at LCX not really moving. You know, and that's what we got. We're gonna have alt season weekend. Yeah, I can't call it, but it's been bloody all week. So you would think, hey, it's been bloody all week. Maybe we're gonna be green this weekend. It's been bloody all week. But so far, I mean, I can't remember the last time we really had a good green all weekend, especially like maybe Asian session green, and then Saturday a couple pumps of green, and then on Sunday another pump of green comes into the market. That hasn't happened in so long. It's like it can't happen no more. It's just like they're just going to keep everything flat and bloody and volatile. Um, but on the stabilization side, nothing's really going lower. It's real hard to kind of trade something because most folks are going to go long. And then the short trading incur is can just be brain numbing for the most part, I think. So there's link catching as I go into an hour, so I'm about to roll this one up and write it up, and I'm gonna get y'all. I'm gonna be working on shorter videos this weekend, so y'all should see some good market report videos, especially if we can get some movement. But you'll see some videos come out on me this weekend. You know, something like a link, I ain't gonna tell you about that. I'm not going to tell you to go trade it. Not just one red candle, not the way crypto is. Nice little move. Will it come back to a spot I'll be interested in putting targets on it for you? Light is in the same kind of same way. I'll leave it up to you whether you think it's worth buying at 110 for me. You know, I covered it, and if we do get a dip down into 100, then it becomes a place where I would suggest that if you want some light, you would take entries. But until then, you kind of are doing your own thing there. And you know, make sure you got value if you're gonna do that. Make sure you understand what you're after. If you come in here and you decide you're gonna trade this and take the risk, you're going after 100%, and it's your trade plan, and that's what you're gonna do. I'm not gonna tell you do anything wrong. You know, it may work. You may have studied it and come up with some reason why you think that's gonna happen. But the value is that if it dips again. So light shows possibly a dip, not necessarily as big as what I was showing you with Ethereum dip and a red phone call. But if the red phone call comes, it's going to dip most of them. Most of these coins haven't went very far, so I would expect that you know, you see an Ethereum rip it up like that. Everything's kind of bullish. We got a green light for everything. Rate cuts are supposedly coming. That the alts would take the opportunity to inflate themselves. It looks to me like they've thrown some risk off at the market today on a Friday as a roll aboard, because the volatility's got a little wider range. It was 2 to 4%. I'm seeing more 5, 6, 8. You know, you can see Rose here taking about 6%. So looks like there's a little bit of volatility behind, and this is a couple sessions of red too. So what they start doing is adding to the red we got. Let's look at super for Gary real fast. That thing's started drifting down again. It was holding really good there for a while, and I was proud of it. And I was like, and it's just drifting again. Most likely, it's going to go down and make that lower low. They like to do that and form a pattern here before you see the green come in again. So that is once again what you got going on there. It looks like they've kind of brought in risk off for New York, is what I'll say. Tesla 1%. So not a lot of risk off. There goes True. You know, one of the trade calls I've been showing you guys, and just right back in there in the buy zone. Hadn't done anything since I showed it to you. Not breaking the bottom. That's been going on for a while. Just trapped on the moving averages, and we got a dip. And most of this dip looks to be, for the most part, you could blame on BTC, down 3%. And these old schools still struggling down here. Here's another one. You know, still in the same spot, and it's been there forever. and it's very enticing. Old school, the way some of these are pumped. When it goes, it's probably going to be a big old candle, and you're probably going it's, with the experience and what we've got going on lately. What is the best thing to do if you get a big 100, 200% candle? Sell most of it. That's how everybody's programmed right now. You better believe that XTZ price action. But I've got a few people in it. If you're a trader and it does that, what's your best option? If you're a trader, what's your best option? Sell it. You get into a position and it does that. You should sell it. Crypto hasn't been given very many paydays. So, obviously it creates a tax situation. It's not necessarily the target you were after. You're after 1,000, 2,000%. Maybe the thing only did 200%. You don't have to sell it. You have to truly believe in an alt season though. And it's drifting right back down there. And yeah, if you get entries way down here and you sell it all, you may not never get those entries, and you may not never get that potential of a 5x and a 10x if you start to buy back up here. And obviously, the higher you buy with these, the more risk you're taking on. So you've got a lot of things to think about. I think I got most of that covered. I kind of fired up a little bit. I need coffee. I'm gonna have a lazy day and kind of sit back and kind of take some stuff in and be a little quiet. Let me take a peek at the metals real fast. I don't want to go too far over there. Silver was really the only one having a run this week. Um, as far as I was concerned, I moved all these around and then I added some fiats and stuff. So gold about 0.42. So and it's strong. So it's ending the week up strong and working through this pattern. I still think they're going to coil this thing into like a little bit of a ball here. It looks a little stronger. That's what I say. There's some risk. There's something going on. Maybe some war stuff breaking. Who knows? But silver making that move right there and basically running a turbo trade. And I may come back to that and make a video. I did. So any of the metal videos and stuff I have a lot of this covered in my coverage here and the trade setup here and what I see happening with the run to 40. And I think they will end up using the crypto fibs here. I think they definitely will end up using those crypto fibs and run with this up to 43 and then eventually up into these highs and you can come talk to me if you want to, but I've got the videos and got this covered all the way up into 100 and then BTC over here because that's what we're here for the most part. And my gun chart and obviously I drew a whole bunch of shit in here and I've got charts. I don't never delete them. And this thing just never corrected and kept pushing. And I've got another picture drawn. And the Fibonacci's and the way that I have all this worked out, obviously come in here and give me a 4.23. I'm not here, calling a top here. I've told you guys what it will take for me to call a top, and that's a breach of 100, which is where we're pushing on. A lot of people feel like where we're at right now, that is the 108, 107. Once that's breached, that's kind of I get the feeling that's kind of their call. But I find a lot of people, and I've talked about this, that are there don't have very low levels. They think it's going to. So they're like, okay, well, if it breaks 108, then we're going to go to 75, and then we'll go back to going up again. And I don't agree with that. So to me, it's going to take them to punch through 100. And then that just opens up the move down to at least 30. And then the rest of it, we will see. And I've talked about that, and I'll talk about it more below 30. Regulation, the 12, the double bottom, black swan, how bad's it going to be? I don't really think a lot of people have all those answers right now. And I will throw it back to Trump focused market and the issue that Powell's had since Trump has come in with giving guidelines for the feds. And I know none of us like the feds and what they do and all that stuff, but took the feds. I don't know. There was already so much shit going on with the feds and we had raising the rates up so fast and all that stuff and all the printing that happened during COVID. And we find ourselves like just I don't know. I don't really know. So I'm going to process all weekend and listen, and we're going to roll into this Fed meeting. I'll go see if there's later on this weekend. I'll see if there's any significant data points coming up. Although I just don't think the data is going to switch anything unless it's a really big mess. Um, 829. So that those jobs numbers probably going to come in before that Fed. I'll get all those dates for you and line them up. And if you're doing this and pay attention, you should have a little calendar, just like I should. But I always pull my stuff up so the notebooks and stuff get covered up. So I've learned just not to have too much of that stuff, the physical stuff around. So I'll just pull the sites I use up, and I'll lay those dates out for you. But you should have a good idea of when that rate cut, the rate meeting's coming in a couple of weeks, and then it's 829, so first Friday of the month is what jobs, and most of the um inflation data and stuff is usually out of the way by the end of the month. But I kind of turned it off after I saw the Jackson Hole stuff last weekend, and I've been listening to some other stuff all week. So we'll see what they got scheduled and what's got coming, and I'll see if I can pick up on maybe what's possibly causing. Looks like risk off, and for the odds and everything, it's just BTC taking a 3% haircut. Remember, we've been in periods, and it's been like this in the last couple of years too, where, and you just remember recently too, where when BTC sold off 2%, your alts were getting hit 20 and 30% at a time. So it's not like that out there. They're holding levels, and they seem to be preparing themselves for a lift up higher. And that's what I'll leave you today with. What are we waiting for? Rate cuts, and I want to lay out the next couple of weeks and see what we got coming up here. Are they going to stall this out and kind of roll and do all this in a really very condensed period of time? And is that going to be a Santa rally again? And are we looking at them actually in 2025, at the end of 2025, repeating 2017 on our asses in some kind of way, kind of morphed, hard to kind of pinpoint, but there's definitely similarities to it. And will there be more similarities to it? But there's a lot of differences to it too as well, because the law of those coins back then are different. Some of them are dead, but we had China coins pumped last weekend, and Neo, which you hadn't seen do anything in there forever, on stuff like that. Then you got BNB, which was and ADA comes to mind, that were nobody back then. Think about it. I mean, nobody. I mean, Otta just come out of there and rip roared through altseason, and eventually did a 4.23 and put itself on the map in 2018. Well, there's going to be a few coins like that come out and do. That's an alt season, you guys. But alt season's different now, because now there's been coins doing that for 4 years. But it's really hard to, Sui comes to mind, where they just show up and they have these big, massive moves. They've been doing that forever. That wasn't necessarily the case going into 2017 alt season. Those alts have been flat as a pancake forever, and they were just great projects. And yeah, if you got in them on the ground floor in an ICO or this or that or this or that or this or that, all that kind of stuff. Now these coins have maturity. They've been around for a while. Their storylines, narratives, bag holders, shillers, have worn out their welcome in so many ways. And the only thing that brings any of this stuff back to life, as far as I'm concerned, is a liquidity pump that just comes through and lifts all coins. But how high can it lift all coins, and which coins get specifically picked out and pump brains? Because that's what you want to happen to your coin. I'll end it, even though I went a little bit over, but I'll be able to tag it real good at the end to keep you going here. That's what you're here for. You're here for the coin, all the money, that the place that you have your money, to absolutely pump brains, and for you to be able to execute, which means you're gonna have to sell. There ain't no I'm not selling shit when it starts. If we get pump brains, you have to sell and take the consequences of selling. No, what are the consequences of selling? It should be making money, but there's a lot of other consequences, if depending on what happens after you sell. But that's the type of learning and experience you have to be successful with this. I'll see you in the next video. I promise to get some more videos out on me this weekend. I feel like a new calm coming over me. I've been pretty lit for the last 3 days, and you'll see that come through the content. But I desperately try to keep it out of there, and go back and clean it up. When I notice myself getting a little bit too gritty with y'all, and try to put it back into the other places. And I don't want to be speaking about this crypto industry and this crypto company and any of this stuff anymore in these live rooms. I basically want to be talking about what's going on, where the money's at, and having y'all engage. And then you don't have to be here live, and you can ask the questions one on one over there in the Telegram. They're going to brew in me, and I'll sit on them. You're welcome, Bill. And thanks everybody for showing up. But you keep asking the messages. Sometimes I get up. I got up the other morning on Pete, and he had sent me a white chart, and I went back and listened to the message. And I, Pete, it's just me when I respond without thinking so much who I'm talking to. I'm really responding to the phone, and then I kind of wake up and I'm like, I can explain it a lot better than my first reaction. That is a breaking of patterns for me that I've yet to get away from. And honestly, I had it broke for a while. You know, I broke it. I didn't keep the phone in the room nowhere with me anymore. And that I had just had special times where I sat down and answered the phone. But I'll get back into the habit of having that phone in my hand to kind of continue to run and communicate and do all that. And I'll catch myself getting up in the morning, and I went outside to get my cigarette, and I've got a damn phone in my hand. And then before I know it, I'm answering questions, but I don't think my brain is working in a different way, and I'm gonna shut up because I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to fix patterns. I'll see you guys very soon. Reach out if you need me. I think all you guys are good. We just got blood again, and I'll go find out why. See you, Pete. Have a good weekend. Everybody have a good weekend. Go have some fun.